I'll start with an why don't you? 31st of December, by the time I get my arse in gear to edit this, it will be the new year, so Happy New Year. Can't say I'm especially looking forward to it. I really, really hope the bunch of bibbling morons we have for parliamentarians sort this clusterfuck out. But anyway, enough of that. Finally got round to my car crash delayed visit to Desmond. Desmond stands, and I'm going to have to look this up again, for Diabetic Education and Self-Management for Ongoing and Newly Diagnosed. I conclude from this that somebody really wanted some words that spelled out Desmond. If you're type 2 diagnosed, you will be invited to go to Desmond. I was supposed to go beginning of November, ended up being mid-December on account of car crash. It was totally worth the wait. A lot of the stuff I learned was stuff I'd found out by my own sort of massive nerdery and, Googling. But it was pitched at a level that anybody could understand. The first part was the stuff I'd mostly done nerdery about, which is like causes, consequences, and sort of short and long-term implications, but they were laid out in a very clear way. I have to be a bit circumspect what I say. There are other people there, they're entitled to confidentiality, and I don't want to in any way say anything that might impugn upon that, but I don't think it should be an issue. The two people who presented it, one was a dietitian or nutritionist, sorry, I don't know the correct term. Another guy, not sure exactly what his background is, but he does these Desmond courses and a lot of diabetic outreach. He's a diabetic himself. Was very practically oriented after the sort of small bit of what you might call theory. And what was especially useful were like these huge baskets of food, or plastic imitation food, obviously, because nobody wanted it to stink. And, given a very hands-on way of evaluating whether something has got a massive amount of sugar in it, more sugar than we might expect in it, or maybe even less sugar than we might expect in it. And it was quite reassuring that most of the things I've done with my diet have been pretty much in the right direction, which is less obvious than you might think. So we're quite chuffed about that. But bottom line is, if you get diagnosed with type 2, you will get invited to Desmond. Go on the course. You will find it useful. You will learn useful stuff. And in many ways it will put your mind at ease that you can manage the situation. On the subject of managing the situation, after the previous video, I did finally get the blood tests back for my 3-month check, and awesomely, my glucose reading was down to 41, which is back in the normal range. The other measure was 5.9, also in the normal range. Top end of the normal range, but still normal range. So very chuffed about that, very happy that things worked well. Slight fly in the ointment, and I'll have to be a little bit circumspect about how I describe this. I had my meds cut in half not long after. Kind of stop leaning backwards and forwards, the camera will keep focus seeking. Had my meds cut in half, reason being that I started on the full dose of 2 metformin twice a day, of getting a situation where I felt like, how can I put this delicately, I felt like I had a cork shoved somewhere where it shouldn't be for several days. And then the cork would be removed fairly suddenly. When that happens when you're out once, it's annoying. When it happens 3 times, it's distressing. And in the end, I had to phone the doctor and say, look, what do I do here? And because my blood test results were fairly positive, they were comfortable cutting my dosage and then revisiting a bit earlier than would otherwise be revisited. But that is one of the potential side effects of metformin, is playing merry hell with your digestive system. And I thought I'd managed to dodge that bullet. Apparently not. Certainly cutting the dose has helped. Things are back at a more or less sort of normal. Still not quite right for reasons I'm not going to go into in any particular detail. but it's a step in the right direction. So hopefully with my sensible diet, I will be able to carry on managing things effectively. The real problem, though, was that when you've been caught short, went out to the extent where that you've got a 10-minute walk home and you cannot be confident of making it, and therefore stop off in your doctor's surgery and take advantage of their facilities, it shakes your confidence in going for a walk. And it did really shake my confidence. I did not feel comfortable that I would be able to walk into town, go to the Only Pancake Parlour, have a coffee, something to eat, and then walk home. That wasn't acceptable, so something had to be done, hence the phone call to the doctors. And touch wood, as I say, things are a bit stable, but I'm still very twitchy about going for long walks, and certainly anywhere where I'm too far away from the nearest Kazi. That's not good, and I'm going to hope that that can be addressed. Now that's the downside. For the most part, the outcome, bearing in mind the diagnosis, has been fairly positive for me. There were people on the DESMOND course who had significantly worse blood sugar levels than I did, and just poking around online, you see there were a lot of people who do. One thing I did discover, there's a forum called diabetes.co.uk, and it was an interesting thing to browse because there's an almost religious fervour there about the low-carb, high-fat diet, which may or may not be hugely beneficial, but there's an awful lot of people talking very confidently without showing their scientific qualifications or the peer-reviewed research. Discussion with some people who know what they're talking about at Desmond suggested that diabetes.org.uk is perhaps a little bit more measured. The lesson here is you can't always be certain of where good advice is coming from. That is not to diss anybody on the .co.uk forum. They're perfectly good, decent people. But they were setting my pseudoscience alarm off a little bit. Possibly not justified. But when that happens, I tend to start poking around. So I'm keeping an eye on places where you can get sort of useful information. That's it really. This is an update. The moral of this year is if you get a diagnosis, start to aggressively manage it. If the drugs play up, you're going to have to review things. Hopefully it will work out okay in the end. Maybe that I went up onto the full dose too quickly. Who knows? Think about where you get information from and take control of it. Don't ignore it. It won't go away. It's going to be quite a challenging year, hoping all the meds remain available. They might not. But you have to stay on top of it. That's my major lesson. And when life chucks you a car crash, you still have to pick yourself up and go along to the course. It was genuinely useful, and the people were really good, nice people, and I learned from it, and if I can learn from it, anybody can. So that's it. That's the end of a truly crappy year. Thanks to a diagnosis I wasn't expecting, and hopefully next year won't be too much of a clusterfuck. Anyway, all the best. Happy New Year.